Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming to Tommy Highway TV, the live show. I, of course, am always your host, Tommy Highway. Had a big day today in Virginia. It was one of those things where it was nobody.
Your feedback is coming over your computer.
It is. Let's take care of that. Anyway, big day today in Virginia. Sorry about that. This is the first live show of the channel, so there's a few kinks, a few bugs. If we have a few, snafus here, if you just bear with us, we'd really appreciate that. Anyway, Virginia today, nobody was sure how this thing was going to go down, and I'll tell you how I started my morning. I rolled over. I turned off my phone. I used my phone as my alarm clock. I rolled over, turned off my alarm, and this is like 7 a.m., right? I immediately go to the news and I find an AP article right off the bat that talked about the big white supremacy rally going on in Virginia today. I mean, I couldn't believe the AP actually printed something like that. It was just unbelievable. And as I began to watch the streams throughout the day, I mean, when you look at the way that they had those people fenced in right there, one way in, one way out, choke points like that. I mean, it's almost like, if I didn't know better myself, I'd say that the government almost wanted something to happen. I mean, I hate to say that, but at this point with Governor Blackface, and let me go ahead and tell you what. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's just go ahead and get a real good look at this guy. I mean, look at this guy. Here we go. Is it coming up? Never mind. I've only got one screen up. Okay, well, I can't do that. Sorry.
Okay, well, Tommy seems to have left the screen. I'm sure he will be back shortly. Here he is. He's back.
Sorry, technical glitch.
It's okay.
The thing about it is, oh, by the way, folks, this is Tim. This is over at UFO Man channel. Great big UFO channel. All kinds of really cool stuff out there. You may go check him out. Again, it's UFO channel or UFO Man channel. I'm sorry. Like I was saying before I cut myself off, basically it's like the media. They were ghouls. Okay. They were dying. They were aching for something to happen, for a bloodbath. That's what the media wanted here.
Right.
And, and if you look at, like I say, the way they had those people fenced in like that just didn't smell right. I mean, I'm no tactics expert, but, give me a break. There's something wrong. It looked like a kill box if I ever saw one, really. But my point being is that all of those weapons that were in that crowd, thousands of weapons, every kind of AR-15 and AK you can imagine, all of those weapons in one place around all of those people, and nobody got shot. How about that? Nobody got shot. In fact, the police have gone on record as saying that there were no serious incidents of any kind. So what does that tell you? If these people are a bunch of Trump supporters out there that are supposed to be so violent, well, that didn't bear fruit today, now did it? And if this was a white supremacy rally, well, there were people from every walk of life, every race, every gender, everything. It was like the epitome of the American melting pot there all over that city. And there was no violence at all. You think about that. Tim?
Yeah, I have an article I would like to read. It is from the New York Times in regards to the rally. It says, amid fears of a potential conflict, gun control activists delayed a vigil for victims of gun violence until hours after the rally ended. Now, this is information I don't think was made known to the general public. More than a dozen students, including some who had survived school shootings, waited in an interior office in the General Assembly building of the state capital of Virginia throughout the pro-gun rally, listening to shouting and cheers outside. Intimidation is not peaceful, said Andrew Goddard, the legislative director for the Virginia Center of Public Safety, who led the group in a moment of silence for thousands of people who have been killed in shootings. But according to some gun rights supporters at the rally, they said they had always planned to carry out a peaceful demonstration, which is what happened, a peaceful demonstration, because a person with a gun is part of a polite society.
Right.
A person without a gun is defenseless.
Mm-hmm.
And if something were to happen, what are you going to do? Are you going to protect your family? Are you going to be able to protect your friends? No, you're not. Are you even going to be able to protect yourself? No. And when the government takes away your right to bear arms, which is a constitutional right,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to lose more than just your gun rights.
Right.
First, it'll be gun rights, and then it'll be other rights.
Sure.
Your freedom of speech, your freedom to move freely about the country, your freedom to live where you want to.
Yeah.
All those freedoms are going to be gone. So we need to act now to stem this disgrace from happening in Virginia. Now, what I wanted to read is Terry Horn, 51, of Quitman, Texas, stayed outside the weapons-free area. The weapons-free area was outside the fenced-in area around the state capitol.
Basically everywhere else.
Right. In that fenced-in area, they had 6,000 people that were anti-gun carrying protesters. Outside the fenced-in area, they estimated between 16 to 32,000 people showed up, maybe even more, bust in from states all over the United States, not just Virginia.
Right.
But Terry Horn, 51, of Quitman, Texas, stayed outside the weapons-free area carrying her rifle. She said, quote unquote, "This is where freedom began, right here, and this is what they're doing to the people of Virginia." Ms. Horn said, quote unquote, as she pointed at police officers screening demonstrators. Since Virginia Democrats took control of the legislature, they have been racing to make a mark on state policy, and gun control has been atop their agenda. Last week, the state Senate approved 3 gun control bills that the House of Delegates could approve as early as this week. The measures limit purchases of handguns to 1 each month, require that gun buyers submit to background checks, and allow local governments to ban guns in parks and public buildings. Mr. Blackface has said he would sign the bills no matter what the rally achieved.
Sure.
So the rally, even though it was a definite exercise of political freedom, it didn't achieve what their goals were. The Virginia legislature is still continuing to push through the bills to take away the guns.
Yes, they are.
And that is a very scary proposition. This could end up in a major conflagration of not just Virginia, but every state in the union.
Nationwide.
So you have to take a look at it that way.
Right.
What do you think, Tommy?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that, excuse me, I think that Virginia is the leftist model for gun control. That's why Bloomberg has pushed all that money in there, and that's why this whole thing has actually happened. And that's unfortunate. I wanted to go back, though, and talk about, I just before this stream started, I watched a video from Mr. Guns and Gear, Mike over at Mr. Guns and Gear channel. Great gun channel, great guy, check him out. But he mentioned something very interesting, that he'd spoken with some people that as he was leaving the rally, they were just getting there, and they told him the story that there might have been 20,000 people stuck at the bus station because they were busing people in. That's how they were getting them there. And there could have been as much as 15 or 20,000 people that actually weren't on the Capitol grounds today. So think about the size of that crowd. I mean, we're talking about that. I've heard anywhere estimates between 22,000 and 55,000. I'm sure the truth is somewhere in between, but that's a lot of people. That's a hell of a lot of freedom in one place.
Right. They said that the actual area outside the fenced-in area appeared to look from the sky, from the news helicopters, that it looked like Times Square on New Year's Eve. It was that packed. And it had extended like 6 to 8 blocks back from the actual state building. So there were a lot of people there. And they were all protesting peacefully.
Right. Because again, like you said, you know, an armed society is a polite society. And we saw that today. I mean, that was exactly. I mean, you had some troublemakers like Antifa and all that. They were there as well. They were apparently peaceful. I mean, I'm not really sure why, other than the obvious. It's probably a bad place to try to start anything with anyone. But that being said, I mean, the whole thing, it just went off. It was just as peaceful as it could be. I mean, you get more arrests than happened at this rally, at a rock concert than actually happened at this rally.
Right, exactly.
Think
at a
about
rock
that for a moment.
concert,
Right.
yeah, or even at a bar.
Sure, football game, anything.
Football game,
any
soccer.
gathering of people,
Right.
So that was just, it really amazed me. But I tell you, the media, they were so disappointed that this didn't turn into a bloodbath. I mean, think about that. That's the media in our country. And I'm going to do a separate video about this, but I got to tell you, my opinion on the media is pretty simple. It used to be, and it wasn't even too long ago, too many decades ago, that a journalist had integrity. And that's how it was like a code that they lived by. And very few of them would actually break it. In other words, they wanted to tell the truth, the unslanted story, and let the people decide, for themselves, right? But not anymore. That's not what we have now. My goodness, they've even, what is that Brzezinski woman on that Morning Joe show? She's actually even come out and been quoted as saying, "We tell people what to think." So at some point, we're going to have to do something about this. Okay, we're going to have to put some regulations and restrictions on the media, because the fact of the matter is, you shouldn't be able to go out there and broadcast falsehoods, lies, and manipulate people.
They're being dictated to by the U.S. government. So whatever is told to the people is prepared prior to the news reports by the U.S. government. So whatever you're hearing is propaganda. So you do need to do your research in regards to news channels. So when they go out there and they say, "Oh, don't listen to fake news," well, it might be some of those internet news channels are actually doing better work than the national channels.
Sure.
And you need to check them out, because there are some very good channels. In fact, I have one I would really like to recommend, and it's a channel called Tim Truth. He's doing a very good job on covering the Virginia rally and some other political aspects of our government. You need to check him out. But Tommy Highway here, he is a rising channel, and we expect to go far. So,
I was just thank you. I really appreciate that, Tim. And I've gotten so much positive response and support from people. In fact, it's been 100% positive so far. And that is just, I really, from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank everybody. And I hope to be able to produce content that, it's like I say, my channel is the home of the Common Sense Network, because I'm a regular middle of the road kind of person here. I'm not a radical either way, any way you look at it. But unfortunately, I don't see a lot of channels like that. Your channels are either one side or the other. I'd like to have something that's a little bit both. However, with the leftists in this country doing what they're doing at this point, I certainly, let's just say I've gotten a lot more conservative as I've gotten older. But let me just go through some news here real quick about today. Just some of the different things that happened. David Hogg mocks and insults Virginia gun rights rallygoers. Put down the gun and pick up a book. Okay, well, to David Hogg, I would have to respond to that I like guns, David. I like them a lot, and I've also written several books. How many have you written? You know what I mean? And it's that kind of crap right there. It's what we've taught our children. And
right.
I knew people growing up that didn't grow up in quote unquote gun houses. Okay. But they didn't see a gun and see the devil. They didn't do that.
Right.
And it's what we've done to this last generation that we've put through our educational system that has taught them all kinds of things that simply are not true.
There are a few people in our population that are extremely violent and have a tendency to go off half-cocked and do stupid things.
Sure.
But for the most part, NRA, gun-toting, country-loving Americans would never consider doing that.
Right. They're not the problem.
They're not the problem, no.
Yeah.
The problem is that the public is not educated enough to understand the true effort or push behind some of the bills trying to go through the legislature that are going to limit our rights.
Right. Well, I mean, the bottom line is the Second Amendment has always been the amendment that protects all of the other amendments. Because if you don't have the Second Amendment, you can't fight back against the government if they declare some sort of form of tyranny upon you, that sort of thing. What can you do? Absolutely nothing. Because without those firearms, you know what? You're not a citizen. You're a subject. That's the bottom line here.
Right. We got Jax in the chat. Welcome, Jax.
Hey, Jax, you want to come over, buddy?
We got a link if you want to come on. Okay. Well, let's see here. On Monday, before full light, thousands of people were converging on the Capitol, bundled against temperatures that didn't get above freezing until afternoon. By mid-morning, the streets were packed like Times Square, like I said. On New Year's Eve, a militia fife and drum corps mixed with the sounds of police helicopters overhead. Just imagine that. Police helicopters overhead, a peaceful protest.
And they were talking about that on the live streams. I heard that mentioned several times about the helicopters.
Yeah, on 9th Street, the sea of gun-toting, camouflage-wearing humanity was too thick to move. A group of burly men formed a chain, each holding their backpack of the one in front to try to make headway down the hill. Flags sprouted like flares, American flags, the Don't Tread on Me flags, militia flags. Squadrons of militias formed lines and executed marches, then sat along the curb and warmed their hands and rested their weapons. A reporter felt his bag snag on something, turned and saw that it had caught on the edge of a long assault-style rifle. The person carrying the rifle said, quote unquote, "Sorry." "You're good, you're good," said the man carrying it, his face concealed behind a scarf and dark glasses. There was absolutely no attempt at violence.
Right. Everybody got along. It was détente out there. And it was détente out there because everybody was armed. That's the bottom line. That's how you get this. I mean, think about the Old West. Think about back in the early 1800s. I mean, people didn't mess with other people as much as they do today because everybody had a gun on their side. That's the bottom line. I mean, if in anything that was worth fighting for was worth killing for, to be perfectly frank.
Right.
And that's how the West was won. There's no question about it. And today, I understand that. Well, I mean, I used to be an open carrier. Okay. I live in a state where that's perfectly acceptable. At least it still is, and depends on where you go. But I used to be an open carrier. Why was I an open carrier? Well, the bottom line is that number one, if I'm not wearing a jacket or whatever, it limits the kind of weapon that I can carry. I'm a 45 guy. Okay. And number two, that's deterrent. I mean, when you look around and you see a room full of people wearing a gun on their side, are you going to go in there and screw up? Is that what you're going to do?
No.
I mean, it's just no, hell no. And that's where we're at, and that's like today. That's what we saw today. I mean, Antifa behaved themselves. Everybody behaved themselves because nobody wanted to get killed. I mean, and I hate to put it that way, but damn, that's what it was.
Another comment was made that says this, quote unquote, "This sends a strong visual message, us being fully armed and in body armor," said Brandon Lewis, patting his rifle. He had driven from Bergen, New York, where he owns a shooting range. The message, he said, was, quote unquote, "The government is not above us. They are us."
Right.
And that's the important point that we're trying to get across. That the government should be made to be answerable to the people.
Right. Jax just made an interesting comment, and he's absolutely right. He says that people's mindset is that guns kill people, and they're wrong. People kill people. Think about it. I mean, if you can't get a gun, I mean, you can get a car, can't you? How many times have we heard people getting run over by cars in the last few years? I mean, like groups of people.
Probably more than gun violence.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing. It's a hard heart that kills. Okay. A hard heart that kills.
Right.
Now, and if that hard heart wants to kill, doesn't need a gun to do it. They can do it a different way.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
that gun anti-gun activist, I can't think of his name, but he's the one that had the girlfriend that was the newscaster, and she and the camera guy got blown away on on television. I mean, everybody saw that, which was horrible.
Oh, yeah,
horrible
I remember
thing.
that.
Yeah, a couple of years back, horrible thing. But at the end of the day, listen, that guy, that was a big, strong man that walked up on them. Now, if he didn't have a gun and he had a knife, they'd both be just as dead. I mean, it would
Right.
change nothing because, again,
Exactly.
it's the intent. It's what's in the heart.
Right, exactly. And good education programs and good public information systems set in place will actually educate the public to know how to take care of weapons, how to use them properly, when not to use them, how to defend oneself in a safe manner. You know, these methods will keep you safe and still honor the laws.
Exactly. It's like they say when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And you
Right.
hear that all the time, and it's true. I mean, but let's say if I were to pick up my phone, I were to call the police in my area, and I live in a major metropolitan area. If I were to call them, I'm looking at the very least 5 to 10 minutes before I'm going to see a police officer. And what if I don't have that kind of time? Then what? And it goes into the whole thing. And I said this in a video the other night. If you want to knock off the regular day-to-day gun violence in the streets, if you want to really knock that crap off, and that's the majority of it, the majority of gun violence are not mass shootings. They're not AR-15s, nothing like that. It's drug dealers, it's the ghettos, it's all of that. Now listen, if you want to fix that, it's real simple. We just make up some new laws that if a person is not supposed to have a firearm and they're caught with one, they're automatically gone for 25 years, period. Out of society, in prison, 25 years. The same if they're caught with a stolen firearm, 25 years. Boom. Lower the boom on them. Take those violent people that can't apparently exist without shooting people, without that gun makes them a man or whatever. Take them out of society, put them into a prison, put them into a penitentiary. And you know what? We don't have to worry about them for 25 years. Now that is taking a bite out of gun violence right there. That would do it.
And by the time they get out, they'll be so old, they'll be hardly able to pull the trigger.
No longer a threat, or at least not nearly as much of a threat.
Right. Right.
Sure.
Jax, do you have anything to say in regards to the stream? Just checking with Jax in the chat.
Yeah. We coming out clear, loud and clear and all that?
Can you hear us okay? Okay. This is Tommy's first stream, so congrats to Tommy.
Thank you.
I was going to say this. In regards to the rally, there were no signs of counter-protesters.
Right.
In a rare clash, a man who said he was shooting a survivor was a shooting survivor confronted a teen carrying an oversized long gun. Why do you need to have that gun? The man demanded. A small contingent watched the two argue. Then they eventually shook hands and walked off peacefully. So it just shows you someone who is anti-gun and someone that is pro-gun can communicate and can walk off peacefully. We do not need to exaggerate the situation and engage in some type of violent action. That's not necessary to get the point across.
Right. We don't have to name call. We don't have to boycott each other's businesses and all of those things. All the things that we've taught this generation of children that is perfectly acceptable. That was a great example of how we used to do things in this country. We used to be civil to each other. It's like I said before. I mean, I've had neighbors that were dear friends of mine, just, best friends. I didn't know what their political affiliation was. I didn't give a damn. It didn't matter. And the same thing applied with me. It's not something that ever came up. But now, these days, it's like if I feel like, I don't know if I can be friends with somebody that's not a Trump supporter because they already have preconceived notions about me. Like I'm some kind of a white supremacist or a sexist or a homophobe or blah, 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 the whole is or isn't thing, right? And it's really unfortunate because it's not supposed to be like that. That's not American. That is not the way America is supposed to be.
Okay. Jack says, what if someone buys a stolen gun?
25.
Yeah,
See ya.
25. Yep.
See ya.
If they buy it
Hmm?
and they get caught with it,
Yep.
it's automatic 25 years in
Right.
prison.
If a person does a straw purchase, in other words, if they purchase a firearm for someone that's not supposed to have one, guess what? Bye-bye, 25. See ya. Sure, we're going to have to build a lot of prisons and all of that. Okay, but we got plenty of concrete and steel in this country. That's not something that we're short on at all. Okay. We got the manpower to build more prisons if we need to. And the bottom line is, do you really want someone in your society that hasn't figured out that they're not supposed to have a damn gun? I mean, do you really want them in your society, or is it time to
Right.
remove them?
Time to remove them.
Everyone is
Yeah.
a ticking time bomb.
Right. Not
You know,
necessarily the case, but yes.
Well, it's like the gun permit thing. It's like when you have to go and get a gun permit in your state. So in other words, what you have to do is you have to go to your local sheriff's office, okay, get fingerprinted and photographed like a criminal, like you've done something wrong, pay whatever the fee is or whatever, and then you get your gun permit, okay? You have to jump through all of those hoops to be able to do that. Now, I wonder how many scumbags have been sitting out in front of, say, I don't know, a 7-Eleven or someplace in history now, and thought to themselves, I'd go in there and rob that place if only I had a gun permit. I mean, think about that. I'm pretty sure that's never happened before. So the permit itself is just a way to control a law-abiding citizen. That's all that is, because the criminals don't give a damn.
Yeah, I do have something else to say here. Much of the crowd at the rally, their ire was focused on Governor Northam, Mr. Blackface, who vowed to pass gun control after a shooter killed 12 people at a Virginia Beach municipal building last year, which, by the way, hasn't necessarily been proven as real. It may have been a false flag event. He has touted measures such as universal background checks, a limit on handgun purchases of 1 per month, and a red flag law allowing authorities to temporarily seize weapons from those deemed a threat.
Right.
Well, that's kind of vague.
Yeah.
How are they going to determine whether you're a threat? I mean, if they say Jax is a threat over in the chat, hey, Jax, you're a threat. You're going to lose all your firearms. We're just going to come into your house and take them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And kill you if you don't give them up.
Right.
And kill you if you don't give them up.
Right. Exactly. And if you show any type of resistance, you're not going away for 25. You're going away for life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because your life will be gone.
And I knew that this was going to happen with these red flag laws, and it just happened in Colorado. I read this a couple days ago. Excuse me. Guy's girlfriend gets mad at him and decides to turn him in for the red flag thing, so they take all his guns. And the judge actually heard the story and denied it, which I was surprised by. Denied taking this guy's guns. But that's what's going to happen if you got a neighbor that you piss off, or if you've got a coworker, or you got a spouse or a girlfriend or whatever. What's the first thing they're going to do? Oh, well, he's dangerous. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, it's happened to me before. Women have lied about me before. Okay, and I'm sure they've done it to most guys at this point. I mean, it's like, and here's the thing: you don't have to have any proof with a red flag law. Like if a woman lies that you beat her up, okay, let's say, and she didn't have a mark on her, okay, well, that's evidence that there was no crime committed. Okay, so the cops probably not going to take you to jail on that one. At least most cops probably won't. But let's just say with these red flag laws, a disgruntled woman can pick up a phone and say, "Oh, he's dangerous. He's trying to kill me," or whatever. What are they going to do? Show up to your house and get your guns. Period. And then you get to prove your innocence. You get to do it. The burden of proof is on you to prove that you're innocent, not the government to prove that you're guilty. That's unbelievable.
Exactly. And today, if violence would have broken out at the rally, they would have probably, after trying to use police force to suppress the violence, if that wouldn't have worked and they would have called in the National Guard, then they probably would have initiated through Governor Northam martial law.
Mm-hmm.
If martial law is enacted in the state of Virginia, then it could actually be enacted countrywide.
Sure.
And if it's countrywide, then they can come in your house and do whatever they want.
Right.
And you have no rights then. All your rights are gone.
Then it's a civil war.
Then it becomes, it could become a civil war. One person said, quote unquote, "Do you want to have your constitutional rights when you are older?"
God, yes.
And another person said, yes, I do. And then the response was, how do you feel when mommy and daddy carry their guns? And the child said, safer.
Sure.
So that's actually the truth behind gun toting or gun carrying, lawful gun carrying people. They provide safety for their families. They provide safety for themselves. They provide safety for their friends and neighbors. They're not out to shoot someone. They're not out to kill anybody. That's the media making up those stories to make them look bad. And it is the fact.
To instill fear in the people. That's what the media is all about. Keep the people amped up on something. It's like, the AR-15. We don't have mass shootings every day. We don't. It just doesn't happen very often at all. Now, and when it happens, sometimes they're bad ones, but the bottom line is it doesn't happen every day. But when you hear the media talk about it, we have to get those guns out of society right now, or it's gonna happen every single day. It's like the lemming thing that I've always used in my videos, that reference. But I mean, you saw today, there could have been tens of thousands of weapons in that crowd, and not one of them went off.
Right.
Not one.
Not even a misfire.
Nope.
And what's interesting is that a society that has a lot of weapons, other than being a peaceful and a polite society, also is a society that has lower crime rate.
Sure.
Because
Absolutely.
who's going to commit a crime if they see a room full of armed people?
Exactly.
They're not. They're going to back away.
That's deterrence.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to get across, is that it should be right for every American to be able to hold and handle or own a weapon legally as long as they pass a background check. I do believe in background checks, because then you're being vetted. You're being vetted into owning a weapon. But if the government is going to vet you, then they should honor that, not take it away, because the Constitution guarantees that right through the Second Amendment.
You keep hearing the term universal background check. And that's one of these that they beat the weak-minded over the head with constantly. Universal background check. Guess what? That's a misnomer. We already have universal background checks. Every background check in every state in the union, when you go to buy a gun, they take all your information, your fingerprints, all that, and they send it to the FBI.
Right.
That's who's doing the background check. It doesn't matter what the state policy is. It ends up with the feds. And people just can't get that through their thick skulls for some reason. It's just the media and the government lying to the blissful idiot to manipulate them.
Well, isn't it kind of ironic that it's the federal government that's doing the background check and then granting you the right to carry a weapon? But then again, it's the federal government who's trying to take away your weapon.
Right. Sure.
Kind of contradictory.
I mean, the background checks are as tight as they can possibly be at this point. I mean, you can't look into someone's mind, heart, and soul and tell what they're going to do with that weapon. But you can tell whether or not they've ever done anything violent in the past, and that's what it's for. But I mean, it's not a foolproof system, because again, a person can be perfectly normal and all of a sudden just snap. And I've known people that have done that.
Right. Let's see here.
You want to roll the video?
I'm looking to see which one I want to roll. Okay. This is a gentleman that owns a company called Accuracy X. And he will explain his position. And I found him to be pretty much in line with what Tommy Highway is saying. And I thought it was important that we bring this video up. Just let me get this up here and I will do it. Let's see here. Share audio. Okay. Share. Okay. You have to bring it from backstage.
Got it.
And as soon as it's up, I'll make it big and play it.
For those of you that have been paying attention, and more importantly, for those of you that are not aware, Virginia is in a fight for its life, for its Second Amendment freedoms and rights. The first thing I'd like to ask each of you watching this video is please watch the entire video. And then I'd ask you to please, I would beg you to share it with everyone you know. I have never in my life felt compelled to reach out and make a statement like this before. And I am truly concerned about what's happening in my state. I believe that Republicans and Democrats alike love their families and want to protect their families. I refuse to believe that this is a right and left. I refuse to believe that this is a Democrat and Republican issue on one side or the other. These newly proposed anti-Second Amendment and anti-gun laws that are being pushed through in Virginia will do nothing to keep our communities safer. Everyone knows that. The FBI's own statistics back that up. So why are they doing this? Because it isn't about community safety with these folks. It's about the fact that they don't like that the Second Amendment exists at all. Obviously, everyone hates to see when there's violence in our communities. And we all want to find solutions that help improve that situation. But we know that this legislation is not intended to address that. I no longer believe their story that this is just about public safety. If it was, the laws they're proposing would be different. But in fact, what they're doing is they're proposing the widest, most far-reaching, egregious laws they can to affect the widest amount of firearms as possible. If these laws go into effect, instantly, with the stroke of a pen, millions of what are now law-abiding citizens in Virginia, these are people who get up every day, work hard, pay their taxes, raise their families, follow the laws, be good citizens for the state of the Old Dominion, will be made criminals instantly once these laws pass. This is outrageous and is unacceptable. We cannot stand by and let the elite powers of our government, who have been chomping at the bit for this opportunity to force feed us their worldview that is completely contrary to what we believe, what we hold dear, and what our forefathers fought and died for. The Constitution exists for a reason. Our laws largely exist, and the Bill of Rights exists to control and limit government's encroachment upon the citizens' lives, not the other way around. And these laws clearly violate citizens' rights to keep and bear arms, to protect themselves, because it's an inalienable right. This is a far scary overreach. This is no longer about agreeing to find a middle ground. If it was only about the AR-15, the laws they are proposing would not be written the way they are. So guys, let's look at the verbiage of some of these bills that are being proposed. So this is Senate Bill number 16, proposed by Dick Saslow. So this bill describes an assault rifle, actually an assault firearm, by these terms. And there's many of these. A semi-automatic centerfire rifle expels a single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material with a fixed magazine capacity in excess of 10 rounds. Or a semi-automatic centerfire rifle that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine and has one of the following characteristics. One of the following characteristics: a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the rifle, a thumbhole stock, a second hand grip, a protruding grip that can be held by the non-trigger hand, a bayonet mount, a grenade launcher, a flare launcher, a silencer, a flash suppressor, a muzzle brake, a muzzle compensator. Folks, that just described the vast majority of firearms in the state of Virginia, and they know this. In addition, Senate Bill 16 says a semi-automatic centerfire pistol that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion or a combustible material that has had the ability to accept a detachable magazine and has one of the following characteristics: a folding or telescoping stock, a thumbhole stock, a second hand grip or a protruding grip that can be held by the non-trigger hand. And this is a big one: the capacity to accept a magazine attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip, a shroud that is attached to or partially or completely encircles the barrel that permits the shooter to hold the pistol with the non-trigger hand without being burned, a manufactured weight of 50 ounces or more when the pistol is unloaded, a threaded barrel capable of accepting a silencer, a flash suppressor, a barrel extender, a forward hand grip. And here's the kicker, and all of these end with this: or any characteristic of like kind as enumerated in clauses 1 through 7. Basically, that is so vague that they can make it mean anything they want. And those descriptions would basically make every sporting pistol and every semi-automatic pistol in the state of Virginia almost immediately illegal under this new legislation. It is unbelievably aggressive and unconstitutional what they are proposing. As I said, this shows us what they really, really mean. We've heard lots of these delegates and these senators go, hey, wait a minute, these aren't finished bills. They haven't gone through committee. They haven't been edited. Folks, you wrote the bills. They shouldn't need to be edited. This is, in your own words, your dream world, a world where almost no firearms are allowed and almost no Second Amendment freedoms are allowed to the citizens of Virginia. So let's talk about Clause 7. The capacity to accept a magazine that attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip. The capacity to accept a magazine, not the magazine. And what that is saying is if you own a semi-automatic pistol that uses a detachable magazine and it has the capability of receiving a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, then you are not allowed to own that firearm. It is illegal under this new proposal. Not that you don't have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. They've written it so vague that even though the pistol and you only have a 10-round magazine, the fact that somewhere somebody could have a magazine that would hold more than 10 rounds and it would be attached and it would be outside of the pistol grip basically means that that pistol is illegal, as would any rifles or shotguns. That's their intent. These are smart people. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, and they see their opportunity as right now. And we as Virginians have to stand up and we have to defend our rights as we've never done before. Furthermore, let's talk about what their definition of a shotgun that would be outlawed would be. A semi-automatic shotgun that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material that has one of the following characteristics: a folding or telescoping stock, a thumbhole stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the shotgun, the ability to accept a detachable magazines, and again, of course, the fixed magazine capacity of 7 rounds, and at the end, as in all of these, any characteristic of like kind as enumerated in clauses 1 through 5. Guys, this isn't about gun safety. This isn't about making our communities safer. This isn't about public safety. To be honest with you, these politicians have lied to us, and we're on to them now. This is not what they say it is. It is absolutely about making our Second Amendment rights so thin and so narrow, they almost don't exist in the state of Virginia. Let's talk about Senate Bill number 64, and this was submitted by Senator Lucy Lucas. This bill goes beyond firearms. It goes to the matter of intent. It says, number 1, teaches or demonstrates to any other person the use of the application or making of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, knowing or having reason to know or intending that such training will be employed for the use or in the furtherance of civil disorder. So now the government is going to figure out what people intend and tell them what they can and cannot do. This is reckless language. And this would basically outlaw anyone from technically being able to take their daughter or their son and teach them how to go hunting, because they could interpret it, they being the government, that ultimately there might be an intent that those skills could be used for further civil disorder. It's outrageous what they are proposing. So Governor Northam says this: if we have constitutional laws on the books and law enforcement officers are not enforcing those laws on the books, then there are going to be some consequences. And that's why they've submitted or updated House Bill 67. Let's talk about House Bill number 67, submitted by Delegate Lee Carter. In this, they're already anticipating the fact that they are going to have to enforce these laws if they get them passed. That means they're going to have to charge employees of the state, law enforcement employees of the state, to go out and enforce these anti-Second Amendment unconstitutional laws upon the citizens of the state of Virginia by force. I know a lot of law enforcement guys. I train a lot of law enforcement guys, and I can tell you that they're not happy about this. They are just as upset about this as you and I as private citizens are in the state of Virginia. But let me tell you what House Bill number 67 says. It's basically saying that public safety employees striking, terminates and becomes temporarily ineligible for public employment. Essentially what they're saying is any agency or government official who strikes or willfully refuses to perform the duties of his employment by such action be deemed to be terminated from his employment and shall thereafter be ineligible for employment in any position of any capacity. And it gives a time frame. So what they're basically telling all of those law enforcement officials is, hey guys, if you want to keep your jobs, if you want to keep your pensions, if you want to keep your health care, we're going to force you to exercise and enforce unconstitutional laws in the state of Virginia. Outrageous, patently outrageous. After hearing and reading the contents of these proposed bills, it should be very obvious to you that none of this is about increasing gun safety or making our communities safer. It has one agenda: to disarm the citizens of Virginia and to rapidly curtail the freedoms within the Second Amendment that we are guaranteed. And we cannot stand by and let this happen. Almost every rifle, pistol, and shotgun in the state of Virginia would immediately become illegal to own or possess. The laws are so crazy and so stringent that they even specify components of these rifles and pistols and shotguns could be considered and would be considered contraband. So if you just had a plastic pistol grip and nothing else that could be attached to something, that would make you a felon. It's crazy to believe that we've come to this. Our governor, Ralph Northam, yes, that Ralph Northam, he tells us that this is about public safety. This is about keeping our communities safe. Well, sir, I respectfully disagree. When I read the bills that you and your cohorts have submitted, they are patently unconstitutional. The Heller decision is clear on this. The argument that we are only protected for firearms that existed in the 18th century is ridiculous at best. Then are we not also protected under the First Amendment for new media like social media and email? The only time your privacy is protected is if you write a letter with a quill pen? I do not believe so. And the Supreme Court has decided on this. You guys know that you're passing unconstitutional laws, or you're trying to, and you've woken us up. We understand politics. We understand different points of view, but we also understand the inalienable rights that every American is born with and every American citizen is granted when they become a citizen. And sir, you are attacking those rights. And the fact that over 90 municipalities and county and locations in Virginia, to the date of me filming this video, have declared or will declare that they are a Second Amendment sanctuary location tells you all you need to know. Guys, there's only 95 counties in the entire state. Does that sound like this is the will of the people to you? And if you think that this is just Republican holdout bastions of pockets of right-wing, gun-toting, loving people, let me tell you, many of these counties have thousands and thousands of people show up for a board meeting, and they can't fit people into the locations. They won't even fit into high school gyms. They have so many people showing up. Do you think that that's only Republicans showing up? No. This is affecting all Virginians, no matter what your political preferences are. They know that these laws are unconstitutional. They know they will be appealed. They don't care. This is their opportunity to force something through and get it on the books. Then you get to the statements that certain legislators have made after the proposal of this. Here's a statement by Democratic committee person Catherine Morrison. She says, "To me, we are a nation of laws and not men, and we all follow laws we don't particularly want to follow." Morrison said that's the democratic process. The majority wins and then compromises with the minority, and they make policy. She went on to say the prospect of ignoring laws that the state legislature might pass is an outrage. Well, ma'am, I respectfully say the true outrage is for a small minority of people in charge trying to make unconstitutional laws law in the state of Virginia and expecting us to have to be forced to obey those unconstitutional laws. Representative Jerry Conley said this about law enforcement that have said that they would not want to enforce unconstitutional, illegal laws upon their own citizens. He said, "I would hope they would either resign in good conscience because they cannot uphold the law which they are sworn to uphold." Well, guess what, sir? The highest law in the land is the Constitution. And what you are trying to propose is contrary to everything that has been settled law on this. Let's talk about what Attorney General Mark Herring said. And I quote, "So when Virginia passes these gun safety laws, that they will be followed, they will be enforced. Now, let's keep in mind, that is not vague language. What they're saying is if these laws are passed, it is their intent to force people in Virginia to oblige by these unconstitutional laws. Chilling. Virginia Representative Donald McEachin even suggested that the governor should and could and would use the Virginia National Guard upon its own citizens to enforce these laws. Now, guys, what do you think that means? Do you think the Virginia National Guard is going to be mobilized and they're going to come to your house and then give you a verbal reprimand if you choose not to obey these unconstitutional laws? Sir, this is the very reason the Second Amendment was included in our founding fathers' documents. The British tried to do the very same thing. And that is why we have the right to keep and to bear arms. Guys, you're not going to convince me that this is a right or left issue or that it's a Republican or Democrat issue. To me, it is a Virginian issue. I know that Democrats and Republicans alike like to hunt and they enjoy the shooting sports and competition shooting. This is not an issue that is based on political affiliation. This is not us against them. It's Virginians against laws and legislation that are clearly unconstitutional and that we will not stand by for this. It's ironic that the state motto for Virginia that's across our state seal and emblazoned on our state flag is Sic Semper Tyrannis, thus always to tyrants. We've forgotten why that motto was put on the state flag. Virginia was one of the original 13 colonies. They were originally ruled and governed by the British government from afar. And because of the overreaches of that government, the Revolution of America was born and spawned and created the greatest nation on earth. How soon we forget that tyranny is not something that's in the past, but can rear its ugly head at any time. We need to remember and we need to defend our rights today, just as our forefathers did over 200 years ago, to ensure that future generations will enjoy the same freedoms and the same privileges as we have in our lives. Folks, this is now or never. This is not something you can afford to sit on the sidelines and see what happens. This is our high water mark. This is the day that we will look back on, and this is the time we will look back on and say, that was where the tide turned, or that's where the end began. This is a blitzkrieg of legislation. They've been waiting for this opportunity for years. They have a narrow window, and they're going to do everything they can to maximize it. If you can, donate to some Second Amendment initiative that is trying to fight the fight for us. They need the funds to back and resist. We all know that millions of dollars have been funneled into the state to support these candidates and to promote this initiative. This is the fight we have to fight. If you stay quiet, we will lose. On January 20th, lobbying day in Richmond, I encourage everyone, no matter what you're doing, stop what you're doing, make plans, and show up and show your support for the Second Amendment rights of Virginia citizens. And this isn't just a Virginia issue. I think we all understand what's at stake here. If they're able to force this down on Virginia, the next states will follow, and they will not stop. They've shown us who they finally are. We understand that this isn't about middle ground. This isn't about trying to find common sense solutions. This is about control. There's been talk about a grandfather clause now. They've already started to backpedal a little bit. Well, you know what? We're not interested in a grandfather clause. What would have happened if our forefathers had opted for a grandfather clause against the British government? There would have never been a United States of America. And the generations that have passed between then and now would have not known the freedoms that we are all fortunate enough to have.
Powerful.
Yes. And yes, Jax, you're correct. It is a national issue, and he did mention that.
Yeah.
But he was also concentrating on just his state since he's from Virginia. But he did mention that if Virginia goes down, then the rest of the states will follow.
Yeah, it's the model for the leftists. That's the whole thing. See, here's the thing. Here's the unbelievable hypocrisy of this entire situation. Like these women that were involved in the government there, and they were being quoted. Okay, they want to take the guns away to make us safe. Okay, but these are also the same women that want to abort as many babies as they humanly possibly can.
Right.
These are the same people. These are the same people that don't want to secure your border because they want those immigrants. They want that eventual vote. That's the whole reason that they want the immigrants here. The bottom line.
Right.
But see, they don't care about your safety. All they care about is your control. And that's what taking the firearms is all about. It's simply a matter of controlling the populace.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
if you really cared about, human life, there's all kinds of other things we could look at here that are much more destructive than firearms. It's not about that. It's never been about that.
It's about control.
Yeah.
Pure, unadulterated control of
power.
everyone, everything you do, what you eat, where you buy your food, everything.
Right.
And if these laws pass in Virginia, it could very well spell the demise of liberty in other states.
Yep. Oh, it no doubt will. That's why this can't pass. Now, the thing about it is, I got to believe at the end of the day, if this thing, all these crazy proposals and bills and laws and all that these Nazis are passing at this point, once they get to the Supreme Court, they'll probably get overturned. Okay, that'll probably happen. But in the meantime, that's that could be a year or two down the pipe, something like that. I mean, are they going to start going door to door before this thing gets to the Supreme Court? I've said it before and I'll say it again. And I've had people chastise one of my videos for that was threatening law enforcement when I said, listen, your families live in those neighborhoods. And when you go to help this Nazi governor, with his tyrannical processes, when you go to do that, they're going to be home. Up to you.
Right, Jax, you are correct. Jax in the chat said control equals fear. Yes.
Yeah. And they use fear to control. Absolutely.
That's how they control us. Yep.
Sure.
And they're trying to say, look, if you own a weapon in the state of Virginia and we pass these bills, we're going to forcefully come into your house with the National Guard and we're going to remove your weapons. And if you put up a resistance, who knows what will happen?
They will kill you. That's what they're not saying. They're saying what they're not saying. If you don't comply, then they will have authorization to kill you and anybody else is in your house
and your family. So you're not protecting your family by doing that.
Exactly.
So the best way is to fight the bill, to fight the bills, to stand up, to make your case known to the people.
You can come out today, and I've actually experimented on this with some ladies in my life. And I said, listen, I'll give you my Second Amendment rights right now. I'll give you all of my guns right now today, and I will never buy, manufacture, or even use another firearm. But I got to have something in return. I got to have those abortion rights. Because, after all, you do have 18 different forms of birth control to choose from. And as soon as I said that to two different women, and they both locked up. Well, that's not fair. It's not fair. Is abortion a right in the Constitution? I don't think so.
No.
It's not protected by the Constitution.
No.
But the firearms and the ability to protect yourself and your family are.
Right. Exactly.
You got some more video you want to roll?
Let me check here. I have a recap kind of on
that'd be a great one.
Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Let me go to my share screen. Oh, I'm already there. Okay. All right.
Protesters brought
Can you hear it?
Massive show of power to the Virginia State Capitol Monday, angry over newly proposed state gun laws.
This is America. You will not take our guns. If you think you want to take them, we'll have a second revolution.
Concerned about violence, Virginia's governor did ban weapons from the pro-gun demonstration inside Capitol Square. Sheriff Scott Jenkins from Culpeper County, Virginia, spoke at the rally.
I will choose to deputize thousands of my citizens to see that they're able to keep their lawfully owned firearms and not be disarmed.
Tensions have been rising since Democrats took control of the state legislature and proposed several bills to limit handgun purchases and require background checks. It follows a deadly mass shooting in Virginia Beach last summer. Gun owners came to push back. Michelle Thomas says she carries a gun every day.
I am a single female, and I think it makes a big difference in my life.
Michael Mumford is part of a group called Black Guns Matter.
You need to be prepared to protect what's yours at all times. And that's life. That's this life that we live in.
As guns rights protesters wrapped up their rally, those who wanted more restrictions on guns canceled their plans for a counter demonstration. Students from March for Our Lives, the group formed following the Parkland school shooting, slept inside lawmakers' offices last night and lobbied in the Capitol today.
With all of the threats and all of the terribly violent rhetoric that's going on right now, our main goal is not to engage with gun extremists today.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be back at the State House before lawmakers
You're a
vote.
brave little nerd, aren't you?
Skyler Henry, CBS News, Richmond, Virginia.
And see, that's that kid right there is just another example of what I'm talking about with the nation's youth at this point. I mean, they have no idea. The kid's probably never shot a gun in his entire life. He's got some adult somewhere telling him.
Hold on a second.
We have the right to protect ourselves in this country. I've had several girlfriends murdered.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Well, I was saying, I mean, we've taught our kids that guns are just the absolute devil, and that anybody that owns a gun there's something wrong with them, like they're psychotic or whatever, and that just couldn't be further from the truth. Now, listen, I've known a lot of people that own guns. I own guns, and I'll tell you, I've never known anybody that went out and shot somebody. I've never known anybody. It just doesn't happen very often. And again, if you've got that in your heart, if you've got the intent to kill, you don't need a gun. You can do it with any number of different ways, and we've seen that time and time and time again. You can
use a stick.
Yeah, you can ban every gun in this country tomorrow and put them all in an incinerator. And you know what? The next day, somebody's going to be killed a different way. Just the way it is. It's unfortunate, but we have a lot of sick people in our society, and that's why we need to be able to protect ourselves.
Right. I do have one more clip.
Okay.
It's another recap of the rally, and it's out of CBS Miami.
Okay.
Hold on a second. You gotta bring it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that. Used to you being the quarterback. Oh, and here's the
gun laws. A lot of people say that the gun is a problem, and I am proving here that my weapon is secure. I am disciplined, and that it is not going to do anything.
This is an American issue.
Tensions have been rising since Democrats took control of the state legislature and proposed several bills that limit handgun purchases and require background checks.
It starts in Virginia, and they get by with this these wackadoo laws. It's just going to go across the country.
Security was beefed up after authorities revealed they received several credible threats of violence. The governor issued a temporary state of emergency and banned weapons inside of the Capitol Square where the rally is taking place. State officials want to avoid another Charlottesville when a white supremacist rally in 2017 ended in the death of a counter-protester.
In every crowd, there's always a bad apple, so you have to be situationally aware of what's going on around you.
A deadly mass shooting in Virginia Beach last summer created a push for new gun safety laws in Virginia. An anti-gun rally was also planned for today, but was canceled by organizers. Andrew Goddard's son survived the 2007 shooting at Virginia Tech.
Why would you take a gun violence survivor or their family into an area where a state of emergency has been declared?
Rally organizers say they are not trying to create unrest, but are here fighting for their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Richmond, Virginia.
I mean, look at that. Thousands of weapons, thousands of high-end, high-performance firearms in that crowd, and not one of them went off. I mean, that just tells you what you need to know right there. It's just amazing. And these anti-gun, the anti-gun crowd that canceled, they canceled because their numbers weren't even close, nothing even near what they were seeing out there in the streets. I mean, the damn town was full of Second Amendment people.
Right.
You know, and again, if you don't want to own a firearm, if you don't feel comfortable owning it, then you know what? You have a choice. You don't have to buy that firearm. You don't have to do it.
Right. You have the right at this point.
Right.
Not to do that.
And I'm not going to let a bunch of little kids tell me what my rights are, because I'll tell you, in the decades that I've lived and paid taxes in this country, it's about me now. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about it. And these are my rights, all right? And these kids don't know enough. They don't have enough experience in their life to be able to tell what good right from a bad right. They don't know anything about that. They don't think in those terms. I didn't at that age, but I do now.
I was in the U.S. Army for a while. And in a situation where a drill sergeant pulled his gun and pointed it at me, he said, if you have a 2-second drop on me. Are you going to defend yourself, or are you just going to let me shoot you? And I said, of course, I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to shoot you first. He said, that is your inalienable right to defend yourself in the United States of America.
Right. Right. You know, and again, it just comes down to, why do they want the gun so bad? Why do they? I mean, you Democrats out there that happen to be watching this, you really need to ask yourself that question. Why? Why do they want them so badly? Okay. There aren't mass shootings every day. And obviously, if they don't want to toughen up the gun laws for the day-to-day gun violence, like I was talking about, putting people in prison for 25 years, then they don't really want gun control. They want people control. And that's what this is all about. But anyway, folks, I tell you what, I think we're going to go ahead and stop it here. I'd really appreciate everybody that stopped by for my first live here. Again, there was a few glitches here and there, but we'll get that right as we go on. I'd like to thank Tim from UFO Man channel for coming by. I'd like to thank Jax for stopping by, and from Paranormal Underworld with some great questions. And we're going to continue to do this. But at the end of the day, like I think what that old man said, one of that older gentlemen said, I should say, on that stream, listen, if they try to take away the guns, we're going to have another revolution. And if you saw the numbers today, imagine that on the scale of a country. That's one hell of an army. It's a bigger military than we have. So anyway, Tim, you have any final thoughts?
Just that people need to educate themselves in regards to arms control. I mean, there are good arguments on both sides, but in regards to the Constitution guaranteeing the Second Amendment, that a person can bear arms and bearing arms shall not be infringed upon, needs to be respected both by the government and by those who are trying to change the laws. And I guess that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, folks, I'd like to thank everybody for coming by. If you'd like, go ahead and stop by my channel, catch some of my other videos. That would be awesome. You can also go out to my website and catch a couple of my books. I would really appreciate that. You can go out to TommyHighway.com, and I have several books to choose from. I do recommend Get Trump, especially in this day and age. It's a book that's I wrote about an upcoming civil war. It's very interesting. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and we got through this day today when there was no civil war declared. So that's a good thing, right?
Good thing.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.